Chapter 81. To make the heart tender. Riqaq. Chapter 1. Health and leisure. Narrated Ibn Abbas. The Prophet said, "There are two blessings which many people lose. They are health and free time for doing good." Narrated Anas. The Prophet said, "O Allah, there is no life worth living except the life of the hereafter, so please make righteous the Ansar and the immigrants." Narrated Sal bin Sa'd al-Sa'idi. We were in the company of Allah's Messenger in the battle of Al-Khandaq, and he was digging the trench while we were carrying the earth away. He looked at us and said, "O Allah, there is no life worth living except the life of the hereafter, so please forgive the Ansar and the immigrants." Chapter 2. The example of this world in contrast with the hereafter. Narrated Sal. I heard a prophet saying, "A small place equal to an area occupied by a whip in paradise is better than the whole world and whatever is in it. And an undertaking journey in the forenoon or in the afternoon for Allah's cause is better than the whole world and whatever is in it." Chapter 3. Be in this world as if you were a stranger. Narrated Mujahid. Abdullah bin Umar said, Allah's Messenger took hold of my shoulder and said, "Be in this world as if you were a stranger or a traveler." The sub-narrator added, "Ibn Umar used to say, if you survive till the evening, do not expect to be alive in the morning. And if you survive till the morning, do not expect to be alive in the evening. And take from your health for your sickness, and take from your life for your death." Chapter 4. About hope and hoping too much. Narrated Abdullah. The Prophet drew a square and then drew a line in the middle of it and let it extend outside the square, and then drew several small lines attached to that central line, and said, "This is the human being, and this the square in his lease of life encircles him from all sides, or has encircled him, and this line which is outside the square is his hope, and these small lines are the calamities and troubles which may befall him. And if one misses him, another will snap, yet overtake him, and if the other misses him, a third will snap, yet overtake him." Narrated Anas bin Malik. The Prophet drew a few lines and said, "This is man's hope, and this is the instant of his death. And while he is in the state of hope, the nearer line death comes to him." Chapter 5. If somebody reaches 60 years of age, he has no right to ask Allah for a new lease of life. Narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, "Allah will not accept the excuse of any man whose instant of death is delayed till he is 60 years of age." Narrated Abu Huraira. I heard Allah's Messenger saying, "The heart of an old man remains young in two respects, yet his love for the world, its wealth, amusements, and luxuries, and his incessant hope." Narrated Anas bin Malik. Allah's Messenger said, "The son of Adam, man, grows old, and so also the two desires grow old with him, yet love for wealth and a wish for a long life." Chapter 6. The deed which is done seeking Allah's countenance. Narrated Mahmud bin Rabia. I remember that Allah's Messenger took water from a bucket which was in our home, used for getting water out of the well, with his mouth, and threw it on my face. Narrated Utban bin Malik al-Ansari, who was one of the men of the tribe of Bani Salim. Allah's Messenger came to me and said, if anybody comes on the day of resurrection who has said La ilaha illallah sincerely, with the intention to win Allah's pleasure, Allah will make the hellfire forbidden for him. Narrated Abu Huraira. Allah's Messenger said, Allah says, I have nothing to give but paradise as a reward to my believer slave, who, if I caused his dear friend or relative to die, remains patient and hopes for Allah's reward. Chapter 7. The warning regarding worldly pleasures, amusements, and competing against each other. Narrated Amr bin Auf. An ally of the tribe of Bani Amir bin Luay, and one of those who had witnessed the battle of Badr with Allah's Messenger. Allah's Messenger sent Abu Ubaidah bin Awra to Bahrain to collect the jizya tax. Allah's Messenger had concluded a peace treaty with the people of Bahrain and appointed Al-Allah bin al-Hadrami as their chief. Abu Ubaidah arrived from Bahrain with the money. The Ansar heard of Abu Ubaidah's arrival, which coincided with the Fajr morning prayer led by Allah's Messenger. When the Prophet finished the prayer, they came to him. Allah's Messenger smiled when he saw them and said, I think you have heard of the arrival of Abu Ubaidah and that he has brought something. They replied, Yes, O Allah's Messenger. He said, have the good news and hope for what will please you. By Allah, I am not afraid that you will become poor, but I am afraid that worldly wealth will be given to you in abundance, as it was given to those nations before you, and you will start competing each other for it as the previous nations competed for it. And then it will divert you from good, as it diverted them. Narrated Uqba bin Amir. The Prophet went out and offered a funeral prayer for the martyrs of the Battle of Uhud, and then ascended the pulpit and said, I am your predecessor, and I am a witness against you. By Allah, I am now looking at my tank lake, Al-Kawthar, and I have been given the keys of the treasures of the earth, or the keys of the earth. By Allah, I am not afraid that after me you will worship others besides Allah, but I am afraid that you will start competing for the pleasures of this world. Narrated Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. Allah's Messenger said, the thing I am afraid of most for your sake is the worldly blessings which Allah will bring forth to you. It was said, what are the blessings of this world? The Prophet said, the pleasures of the world. A man said, can the good bring forth evil? The Prophet kept quiet for a while, till we thought that he was being inspired divinely. Then he started removing the sweat from his forehead and said, where is the questioner? That man said, I am present. Abu Sa'id added, we thanked the man when the result of his question was such. The Prophet said, good never bring forth but good. This wealth of the world is like green and sweet fruit, and all the vegetation which grows on the bank of a stream either kills or nearly kills the animal that eats too much of it, except the animal that eats the kadira, a kind of vegetation. Such an animal eats till its stomach is full, and then it faces the sun and starts ruminating, and then it passes out dung and urine and goes to eat again. This worldly wealth is like that. This worldly wealth is like sweet fruit, and if a person earns it, the wealth, in a legal way and spends it properly, then it is an excellent helper. And whoever earns it in an illegal way, he will be like the one who eats but is never satisfied. Narrated Saddam bin Mudarib. Imran bin Hussein said, "The Prophet said, the best people are my contemporaries, yet the present my generation, and then those who come after them, yet the next generation." Imran added, "I'm not sure whether the Prophet repeated the statement twice after his first saying." The Prophet added, "And after them there will come people who will bear witness, though they will not be asked to give their witness, and they will be treacherous, and nobody will trust them. And they will make vows, but will not fulfill them, and fatness will appear among them." Narrated Abdullah. The Prophet said, "The best people are those of my generation, and then those who will come after them, the next generation, and then those who will come after them, yet the next generation, and then after them there will come people whose witness will precede their oaths, and whose oaths will precede their witness." Narrated Qais. I heard Khabab, who had branded his abdomen with 7 brands, saying, "Had Allah's messenger not forbidden us to invoke Allah for death, I would have invoked Allah for death. The companions of Muhammad have left this world without taking anything of their reward in it. Yet they will have perfect reward in the hereafter, but we have collected of the worldly wealth what we cannot spend but on earth, yet on building houses." Narrated Qais. I came to Khabab while he was building a wall, and he, Khabab, said, "Our companions who have left this world did not enjoy anything of their reward therein, while we have collected after them much wealth that we cannot spend but on earth, yea, on building." Narrated Khabab. We migrated with the Prophet. This narration is related in the chapter of migration. Chapter 8. O mankind, verily the promise of Allah is true, so let not this present life deceive you. Narrated Ibn Abbas. I brought water to Uthman bin Affan to perform the ablution while he was sitting on his seat. He performed the ablution in a perfect way and said, "I saw the Prophet performing the ablution in this place, and he performed it in a perfect way and said, whoever performs the ablution as I have done this time, and then proceeds to the mosque and offers a 2 rakat prayer, and then sits there waiting for the compulsory congregational prayers, then all his past sins will be forgiven." The Prophet further added, "Do not be conceited, thinking that your sins will be forgiven because of your prayer." Chapter 9. The righteous people will depart. Narrated Mirdas al-Aslami. The Prophet said, "The righteous pious people will depart, die in the succession, one after the other, and there will remain on the earth useless people like the useless husk of barley seeds or bad dates." Chapter 10. The fitna of wealth should be warded off. Narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, perish the slave of dinar, dirham, katifa, thick soft cloth, and kamisa, a garment, for if he is given, he is pleased, otherwise he is dissatisfied. Narrated Ibn Abbas. I heard the Prophet saying, if the son of Adam, the human being, had 2 valleys of money, he would wish for a third, for nothing can fill the belly of Adam's son except dust, and Allah forgives him who repents to him. Narrated Ibn Abbas. I heard Allah's Messenger saying, if the son of Adam had money equal to a valley, then he will wish for another similar to it, for nothing can satisfy the eye of Adam's son except dust, and Allah forgives him who repents to him. Ibn Abbas said, I do not know whether this saying was quoted from the Quran or not. Atta said, I heard Ibn As-Subayr saying this narration while he was on the pulpit. Narrated Sa'al bin Sa'd. I heard Ibn As-Subayr, who was on the pulpit at Mecca, delivering a sermon, saying, O men, the Prophet used to say, if the son of Adam were given a valley full of gold, he would love to have a second one, and if he were given the second one, he would love to have a third, for nothing fills the belly of Adam's son except dust, and Allah forgives he who repents to him. Ubay said, we considered this as a saying from the Quran till the surah beginning with, the mutual rivalry for piling up of worldly things diverts you. 102:1 was revealed. Narrated Anas bin Malik. Allah's Messenger said, if Adam's son had a valley full of gold, he would like to have 2 valleys, for nothing fills his mouth except dust, and Allah forgives him who repents to him. Ubay said, referring to the hadith above, we consider this as a saying from the Quran till the surah beginning with, the mutual rivalry for piling up of worldly things diverts you. 102:1 was revealed. Chapter 11. Wealth is green sweet. Narrated Hakim bin Hisham. I asked the Prophet for some money, and he gave me, and then again I asked him, and he gave me, and then again I asked him, and he gave me, and he then said, this wealth is like green and sweet fruit, and whoever takes it without greed, Allah will bless it for him, but whoever takes it with greed, Allah will not bless him, and he will be like the one who eats but is never satisfied, and the upper giving hand is better than the lower taking hand. Chapter 12. Whatever one spends from his money will be better for him. Narrated Abdullah. The Prophet said, who among you considers the wealth of his heirs dearer to him than his own wealth? They replied, O Allah's Messenger, there is none among us but loves his own wealth more. The Prophet said, so his wealth is whatever he spends in Allah's cause during his life on good deeds, while the wealth of his heirs is whatever he leaves after his death. Chapter 13. The rich are in fact the poor. Narrated Abu Dhar. Once I went out at night and found Allah's Messenger walking all alone, accompanied by nobody, and I thought that perhaps he disliked that someone should accompany him, so I walked in the shade, away from the moonlight, but the Prophet looked behind and saw me and said, who is that? I replied, Abu Dhar, let Allah get me sacrificed for you. He said, O Abu Dhar, come here. So I accompanied him for a while, and then he said, The rich are in fact the poor, little rewarded. On the day of resurrection, except him whom Allah gives wealth, which he gives in charity to his right, left, front and back, and does good deeds with it. I walked with him a little longer, then he said to me, "Sit down here." So he made me sit in an open space surrounded by rocks, and said to me, "Sit here till I come back to you." He went towards Al-Hara till I could not see him, and he stayed away for a long period. And then I heard him saying, while he was coming, even if he had committed theft, and even if he had committed illegal sexual intercourse, when he came, I could not remain patient and asked him, "O Allah's Prophet, let Allah get me sacrificed for you. Whom were you speaking to by the side of Al-Hara?" I did not hear anybody responding to your talk. He said, "It was Gabriel who appeared to me beside Al-Hara and said, 'Give the good news to your followers that whoever dies without having worshipped anything besides Allah will enter paradise.' I said, 'O Gabriel, even if he had committed theft or committed illegal sexual intercourse?' He said, 'Yes.' I said, 'Even if he has committed theft or committed illegal sexual intercourse?' He said, 'Yes.' I said, 'Even if he has committed theft or committed illegal sexual intercourse?' He said, 'Yes.' Chapter 14. It will not please me to have gold equal to this mountain of Uhud. Narrated Abu Dar. While I was walking with the Prophet in the Hara of Medina, Uhud came in sight. The Prophet said, "O Abu Dar." I said, "Labaik, O Allah's Messenger." He said, "I would not like to have a gold equal to this mountain of Uhud, unless nothing of it, not even a single dinar of it, remains with me for more than 3 days, except something which I will keep for repaying debts. I would have spent all of it, distributed it amongst Allah's slaves like this, and like this, and like this." The Prophet pointed out with his hand towards his right, his left and his back, while illustrating it. He proceeded with his walk and said, "The rich are in fact the poor, little rewarded, on the day of resurrection, except those who spend their wealth like this, and like this, and like this, to the right, left and back, but such people are few in number." Then he said to me, "Stay at your place and do not leave it till I come back." Then he proceeded in the darkness of the night till he went out of sight. And then I heard a loud voice, and was afraid that something might have happened to the Prophet. One intended to go to him, but I remembered what he had said to me. "Yeah, don't leave your place till I come back to you." So I remained at my place till he came back to me. I said, "O Allah's Messenger, I heard a voice and I was afraid." So I mentioned the whole story to him. He said, "Did you hear it?" I replied, "Yes." He said, "It was Gabriel who came to me and said, 'Whoever died without joining others in worship with Allah will enter paradise.' I asked Gabriel, even if he had committed theft or committed illegal sexual intercourse. Gabriel said, "Yes, even if he had committed theft or committed illegal sexual intercourse." Narrated Abu Huraira. Allah's Apostle said, "If I had gold equal to the mountain of Uhud, it would not please me that anything of it should remain with me after 3 nights. Yeah, I would spend all of it in Allah's cause, except what I would keep for repaying debts." Chapter 15. True riches is self-contentment. Narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, Riches does not mean having a great amount of property, but riches is self-contentment. Chapter 16. The superiority of being poor. Narrated Sahl bin Sa'd as-Sa'id. A man passed by Allah's messenger, and the Prophet asked the man sitting beside him, "What is your opinion about this passerby?" He replied, "This passerby is from the noble class of people. By Allah, if he should ask for a lady's hand in marriage, he ought to be given her in marriage. And if he intercedes for somebody, his intercession will be accepted." Allah's messenger kept quiet, and then another man passed by, and Allah's messenger asked the same man, this companion again, "What is your opinion about this second one?" He said, "O Allah's messenger, this person is one of the poor Muslims. If he should ask a lady's hand in marriage, no one will accept him. And if he intercedes for somebody, no one will accept his intercession. And if he talks, no one will listen to his talk." Then Allah's messenger said, "This poor man is better than such a large number of the first type, rich men, as to fill the earth." Narrated Abu Wa'il. We paid a visit to Kabab, who was sick, and he said, "We migrated with the Prophet for Allah's sake, and our wages became due on Allah. Some of us died without having received anything of the wages, and one of them was Musab bin Umar, who was martyred on the day of the Battle of Uhud, leaving only one sheet to shroud him in. If we covered his head with it, his feet became uncovered, and if we covered his feet with it, his head became uncovered. So the Prophet ordered us to cover his head with it and put some idkir, a kind of grass, over his feet. On the other hand, some of us have had the fruits of our good deed and are plucking them in this world. On the other hand, some of us have had the fruits of our good deed and are plucking them in this world." Narrated Imran bin Hussein. The Prophet said, "I looked into paradise and found that the majority of its dwellers were the poor people, and I looked into the hellfire and found that the majority of its dwellers were women." Narrated Anas. The Prophet did not eat at the table till he died, and he did not eat a thin, nicely baked wheat bread till he died. Narrated Aisha. When the Prophet died, nothing which can be eaten by a living creature was left on my shelf except some barley grain. I ate of it for a period, and when I measured it, it finished. Chapter 17. How the Prophet, Saul, and his companions used to live. Narrated Abu Huraira. By Allah, except whom none has the right to be worshipped. Sometimes I used to lay sleep on the ground, on my abdomen, because of hunger, and sometimes I used to bind a stone over my belly, because of hunger. One day I sat by the way from where the Prophet and his companions used to come out. When Abu Bakr passed by, I asked him about a verse from Allah's book, and I asked him only that he might satisfy my hunger, but he passed by and did not do so. Then Umar passed by me, and I asked him about a verse from Allah's book, and I asked him only that he might satisfy my hunger, but he passed by without doing so. Finally, Abu al-Qasim, the Prophet, passed by me, and he smiled when he saw me, for he knew what was in my heart and on my face. He said, "O Abu Hir, Abu Huraira, I replied. Labaik, O Allah's Messenger. He said to me, follow me. He left and I followed him. Then he entered the house, and I asked permission to enter and was admitted. He found milk in a bowl and said, From where is this milk? They said, It has been presented to you by such and such a man, by such and such man, or by such and such woman. He said, O Abahir. I said, Labaik, O Allah's Messenger. He said, Go and call the people of Sufa to me. These people of Sufa were the guests of Islam, who had no families, nor money, nor anybody to depend upon. And whenever an object of charity was brought to the Prophet, he would send it to them, and would not take anything from it. And whenever any present was given to him, he used to send some for them, and take some of it for himself. The order of the Prophet upset me, and I said to myself, how will this little milk be enough for the people of As-Sufa, though I was more entitled to drink from that milk in order to strengthen myself. But behold, the Prophet came to order me to give that milk to them. I wondered what will remain of that milk for me, but anyway, I could not but obey Allah and His Apostle. So I went to the people of As-Sufa and called them, and they came and asked the Prophet's permission to enter. They were admitted and took their seats in the house. The Prophet said, O Abahir. I said, Labaik, O Allah's Messenger. He said, Take it and give it to them. So I took the bowl of milk and started giving it to one man, who would drink his fill and return it to me. Whereupon I would give it to another man, who in his turn would drink his fill and return it to me. And I would then offer it to another man, who would drink his fill and return it to me. Finally, after the whole group had drunk their fill, I reached the Prophet, who took the bowl and put it in his hand, looked at me and smiled and said, O Abahir. I replied, Labaik, O Allah's Messenger. He said, There remain you and I. I said, You have said the truth, O Allah's Messenger. He said, Sit down and drink. I sat down and drank. He said, Drink, and I drank. He kept on telling me repeatedly to drink, till I said, No, by Allah, who has sent you with the truth, I have no space for it in my stomach. He said, Hand it over to me. When I gave him the bowl, he praised Allah and pronounced Allah's name on it and drank the remaining milk. Narrated Saad. I was the first man among the Arabs to throw an arrow for Allah's cause. We used to fight in Allah's cause while we had nothing to eat except the leaves of the hubla and the sumir trees, desert trees, so that we discharged excrements like that of sheep, unmixed droppings. Today the people of the tribe of Bani Asad teach me the laws of Islam. If so, then I am lost, and all my efforts of that hard time had gone in vain. Narrated Aisha. The family of Muhammad had never eaten their fill of wheat bread for 3 successive days, since they had migrated to Medina till the death of the Prophet. Narrated Aisha. The family of Muhammad did not eat 2 meals on one day, but one of the 2 was of dates. Narrated Aisha. The bed mattress of the Prophet was made of a leather case stuffed with palm fibers. Narrated Qatada. We used to go to Anas bin Malik and see his baker standing preparing the bread. Anas said, Eat, I have not known that the Prophet ever saw a thin, well-baked loaf of bread till he died, and he never saw a roasted sheep with his eyes. Narrated Aisha. a complete month will pass by during which we would not make a fire for cooking, and our food used to be only dates and water unless we were given a present of some meat. Narrated Aisha that she said to Urwa, "O the son of my sister, we used to see 3 crescents in the moon in 2 months, and no fire used to be made in the houses of Allah's messenger, yet nothing used to be cooked." Urwa said, "What used to sustain you?" Aisha said, "The 2 black things, yet dates and water, except that Allah's messenger had neighbors from the Ansar who had some milch camels, and they used to give the Prophet some milk from their house, and he used to make us drink it." Narrated Abu Huraira, Allah's messenger said, "O Allah, give food to the family of Muhammad." Chapter 18. The adoption of a middle course and the regularity of deeds. Narrated Masruq, I asked Aisha, what deed was the most beloved to the Prophet? She said, the regular constant one. I said, at what time did he used to get up at night for the tahajjud, night prayer? She said, he used to get up on hearing the crowing of the cock, the last third of the night. Narrated Aisha, the most beloved action to Allah's messenger was that whose doer did it continuously and regularly. Narrated Abu Huraira, Allah's messenger said, the deeds of any one of you will not save you from the hellfire. They said, even you will not be saved by your deeds, O Allah's messenger. He said, no, even I will not be saved until Allah bestows His mercy on me. Therefore, do good deeds properly, sincerely, and moderately, and worship Allah in the forenoon, and in the afternoon, and during a part of the night, and always adopt a middle, moderate, regular course whereby you will reach your target, paradise. Narrated Aisha, Allah's messenger said, do good deeds properly, sincerely, and moderately, and know that your deeds will not make you enter paradise, and that the most beloved deed to Allah is the most regular and constant, even if it were little. Narrated Aisha, the Prophet was asked, what deeds are loved most by Allah? He said, the most regular, constant deeds, even though they may be few. He added, don't take upon yourselves except the deeds which are within your ability. Narrated Alqama, I asked Aisha, mother of the believers, O mother of the believers, how were the deeds of the Prophet? Did he used to do extra deeds of worship on special days? She said, no, but his deeds were regular and constant. And who among you is able to do what the Prophet was able to do, yet in worshipping Allah? Narrated Aisha, the Prophet said, do good deeds properly, sincerely, and moderately, and receive good news, because one's good deeds will not make him enter paradise. They asked, even you, O Allah's messenger? He said, even I, until Allah bestows His pardon and mercy on me. Narrated Anas bin Malik, once Allah's messenger led us in prayer, and then after finishing it, ascended the pulpit and pointed with his hand towards the Qibla of the mosque and said, while I was leading you in prayer, both paradise and hell were displayed in front of me in the direction of this wall. I had never seen a better thing than paradise and a worse thing than hell, as I have seen today. I had never seen a better thing and a worse thing as I have seen today. Chapter 19. Hope with Fear. Narrated Abu Huraira. I heard Allah's Messenger saying, Verily Allah created mercy the day He created it. He made it into 100 parts. He withheld with Him 99 parts and sent its one part to all His creatures. Had the non-believer known of all the mercy which is in the hands of Allah, he would not lose hope of entering paradise. And had the believer known of all the punishment which is present with Allah, he will not consider himself safe from the hellfire. Chapter 20. Refraining from doing things Allah has made illegal. Narrated Abu Sa'id. Some people from the Ansar asked Allah's Messenger to give them something, and He gave to every one of them who asked Him, until all that he had was finished. When everything was finished and he had spent all that was in his hand, he said to them, Know that if I have any wealth, I will not withhold it from you to keep for somebody else. And I know that he who refrains from begging others or doing prohibited deeds, Allah will make him contented and not in need of others. And he who remains patient, Allah will bestow patience upon him. And he who is satisfied with what he has, Allah will make him self-sufficient. And there is no gift better and vast you may be given than patience. Narrated Al-Mughira bin Shu'bah. The Prophet used to pray so much that his feet used to become edematous or swollen, and when he was asked as to why he prayed so much, he would say, Shall I not be a thankful slave to Allah? Chapter 21. And whosoever puts his trust in Allah, then He will suffice him. Narrated Ibn Abbas. Allah's Messenger said, 70,000 people of my followers will enter paradise without accounts, and they are those who do not practice ar-ruqya and do not see an evil omen in things, and put their trust in their Lord. Chapter 22. What is disliked about Kill and Call. Narrated Warad. The clerk of Al-Mughira bin Shu'bah, Muawiyah, wrote to Al-Mughira, Write to me a narration you have heard from Allah's Messenger. So Al-Mughira wrote to him. I heard him saying the following after each prayer, La ilaha illallahu wahdahu la sharika lahu lahul mulk wa lahul hamd wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. He also used to forbid idle talk, asking too many questions in religion, wasting money, preventing what should be given, and asking others for something except in great need, being undutiful to mothers, and burying one's little daughters alive. Chapter 23. To protect one's tongue. Narrated Sal bin Sa'd. Allah's Messenger said, Whoever can guarantee the chastity of what is between his two jawbones and what is between his two legs, yea, his tongue and his private parts, I guarantee paradise for him. Narrated Abu Huraira. Allah's Messenger said, Whoever believes in Allah and the last day should talk what is good or keep quiet, and whoever believes in Allah and the last day should not hurt or insult his neighbor, and whoever believes in Allah and the last day should entertain his guests generously. Narrated Abu Shuraih al-Qusay. My ears heard and my heart grasps the statement which the Prophet said The period for keeping one's guest is 3 days, and don't forget his reward. It was asked, what is his reward? He said, in the first night and the day he should be given a high-class quality of meals, and whoever believes in Allah and the last day should entertain his guests generously, and whoever believes in Allah and the last day should talk what is good sense or keep quiet. Narrated Abu Huraira that he heard Allah's messenger saying, a slave of Allah may utter a word without thinking whether it is right or wrong. He may slip down in the fire as far away a distance equal to that between the east. Narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, a slave of Allah may utter a word which pleases Allah without giving it much importance, and because of that Allah will raise him to degrees of reward. A slave of Allah may utter a word carelessly which displeases Allah without thinking of its gravity, and because of that he will be thrown into the hellfire. Chapter 24. Weeping out of fear of Allah. Narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, Allah will give shade to 7 types of people under his shade on the day of resurrection. One of them will be a person who remembers Allah and his eyes are then flooded with tears. Chapter 25. To be afraid of Allah. Asa wa Jal. Narrated Hudayfa. The Prophet said, there was a man amongst the people who had suspicion as to the righteousness of his deeds. Therefore he said to his family, if I die, take me and burn my corpse, and throw my ashes into the sea on a hot or windy day. They did so, but Allah collected his particles and asked him, what made you do what you did? He replied, the only thing that made me do it was that I was afraid of you, so Allah forgave him. Narrated Abu Sa'id. The Prophet mentioned a man from his previous generation or from the people preceding your age whom Allah had given both wealth and children. The Prophet said, when the time of his death approached, he asked his children, what type of father have I been to you? They replied, you have been a good father. He said, but your father has not stored any good deeds with Allah for the hereafter. If he should face Allah, Allah will punish him. So listen, O my children, when I die, burn my body till I become mere coal, and then grind it into powder, and when there is a stormy wind, throw me my ashes in it. So he took a firm promise from his children to follow his instructions, and by Allah, they, his sons, did accordingly fulfill their promise. Then Allah said, be, and behold, that man was standing there. Allah then said, O my slave, what made you do what you did? That man said, fear of you, so Allah forgave him. Chapter 26. To give up sinful deeds. Narrated Abu Musa. Allah's messenger said, my example and the example of the message with which Allah has sent me is like that of a man who came to some people and said, I have seen with my own eyes the enemy forces, and I am a naked warner to you, and so save yourself. A group of them obeyed him and went out at night, slowly and stealthily, and were safe. While another group did not believe him, and thus the army took them in the morning and destroyed them. Narrated Abu Huraira. I heard Allah's messenger saying, my example and the example of the people is that of a man who made a fire, and when it lighted what was around it, moths and other insects started falling into the fire. The man tried his best to prevent them from falling into the fire, but they overpowered him and rushed into the fire. The Prophet added, "Now similarly, I take hold of the knots at your waist belts to prevent you from falling into the fire, but you insist on falling into it." Narrated Abdullah bin Amr. The Prophet said, "A Muslim is the one who avoids harming Muslims with his tongue or his hands, and a muhajir, an emigrant, is the one who gives up, abandons all what Allah has forbidden." Chapter 27. If you knew that which I know, you would laugh little and weep much. Narrated Abu Hurairah. Allah's Messenger said, If you knew that which I know, you would laugh little and weep much. Narrated Anas. The Prophet said, If you knew that which I know, you would laugh little and weep much. Chapter 28. The fire is surrounded by all kinds of desires and passions. Narrated Abu Hurairah. Allah's Messenger said, The hellfire is surrounded by all kinds of desires and passions, while paradise is surrounded by all kinds of disliked, undesirable things. Chapter 29. Paradise is nearer to any one of you than the shirak of his shoe, and so is the fire. Narrated Abdullah. The Prophet said, Paradise is nearer to any of you than the shirak leather strap of his shoe, and so is the hellfire. Narrated Abu Hurairah. The Prophet said, The truest poetic verse ever said by a poet is, Indeed, everything except Allah is perishable. Chapter 30. To look at the one who is inferior to and not the superior. Narrated Abu Hurairah. Allah's Messenger said, If any one of you looked at a person who was made superior to him in property and in good appearance, then he should also look at the one who is inferior to him. Chapter 31. Whoever intended to do a good deed or a bad deed. Narrated Ibn Abbas. The Prophet, narrating about his Lord, and said, Allah ordered the appointed angels over you that the good and the bad deeds be written, and he then showed the way how to write. If somebody intends to do a good deed and he does not do it, then Allah will write for him a full good deed in his account with him. And if he intends to do a good deed and actually did it, then Allah will write for him in his account with him its reward equal from 10 to 700 times to many more times. And if somebody intended to do a bad deed and he does not do it, then Allah will write a full good deed in his account with him. And if he intended to do a bad deed and actually did it, then Allah will write one bad deed in his account. Chapter 32. What minor sins should be warded off. Narrated Gailan. Anas said, You people do bad deeds, commit sins which seem in your eyes as tiny minute than hair. While we used to consider those very deeds during the lifetime of the Prophet as destructive sins. Chapter 33. The deeds done depend upon the last actions. Narrated Sa'd bin Sal as-Sa'idi. The Prophet looked at a man fighting against the pagans, and he was one of the most competent persons fighting on behalf of the Muslims. The Prophet said, Let him who wants to look at a man from the dwellers of the hellfire look at this man. Another man followed him and kept on following him till he, the fighter, was injured, and seeking to die quickly, he placed the blade tip of his sword between his breasts and leaned over it till it passed through his shoulders. He committed suicide. The Prophet added, A person may do deeds that seem to be to the people as the deeds of the people of paradise, while in fact he is from the dwellers of the hellfire. And similarly, a person may do deeds that seem to the people as the deeds of the people of the hellfire, while in fact he is from the dwellers of paradise. Verily, the results of deeds done depends upon the last actions. Chapter 34. Seclusion is better for a believer than to have evil companions. Narrated Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. A Bedouin came to the Prophet and said, O Allah's Messenger, who is the best of mankind? The Prophet said, a man who strives for Allah's cause, with his life and property, and also a man who lives all alone in a mountain path among the mountain paths to worship his Lord and save the people from his evil. Narrated Abu Sa'id. I heard from the Prophet saying, there will come a time upon the people when the best property of a Muslim will be sheep, which he will take to the tops of mountains and to the places of rainfall, run away with his religion in order to save it from afflictions. Chapter 35. The disappearance of Al-Amana. Narrated Abu Huraira. Allah's Messenger said, when honesty is lost, then wait for the hour. It was asked, how will honesty be lost, O Allah's Messenger? He said, when authority is given to those who do not deserve it, then wait for the hour. Narrated Hudayfa. Allah's Messenger narrated to us two narrations, one of which I have seen happening, and I am waiting for the other. He narrated that honesty was preserved in the roots of the hearts of men in the beginning, and then they learnt it honesty from the Quran, and then they learnt it from the Prophet's Sunnah tradition. He also told us about its disappearance, saying, a man will go to sleep, whereupon honesty will be taken away from his heart, and only its trace will remain, resembling the traces of fire. He then will sleep, whereupon the remainder of the honesty will also be taken away from his heart, and its trace will resemble a blister which is raised over the surface of skin when an ember touches one's foot, and in fact this blister does not contain anything. So there will come a day when people will deal in business with each other, but there will hardly be any trustworthy persons among them. Then it will be said that in such and such a tribe there is such and such person who is honest, and a man will be admired for his intelligence, good manners and strength, though indeed he will not have belief equal to a mustard seed in his heart. The narrator added, there came upon me a time when I did not mind dealing with anyone of you, for if he was a Muslim, his religion will prevent him from cheating, and if he was a Christian, his Muslim ruler would prevent him from cheating. But today I cannot deal except with so and so and so and so. See Hadith number 208, volume 9. Narrated Abdullah bin Umar. I heard Allah's Messenger saying, people are just like camels. Out of 100, one can hardly find a single camel suitable to ride. Chapter 36. Showing off. Narrated Jundub. The Prophet said, he who lets the people hear of his good deeds intentionally to win their praise, Allah will let the people know his real intention on the day of resurrection. And he who does good things in public to show off and win the praise of the people, Allah will disclose his real intention and humiliate him. Chapter 37. Whoever compelled himself to obey Allah. Narrated Mu'adh bin Jabal. While I was riding behind the Prophet as a companion rider, and there was nothing between me and him except the back of the saddle. He said, "O Mu'adh," I replied, "Labbaik, O Allah's Messenger," and Sadaik. He proceeded for a while and then said, "O Mu'adh," I said, "Labbaik and Sadaik, O Allah's Messenger." He then proceeded for another while and said, "O Mu'adh bin Jabal," I replied, "Labbaik, O Allah's Messenger," and Sadaik. He said, "Do you know what is Allah's right on his slaves?" I replied, "Allah and his apostle know better." He said, "Allah's right on his slave is that they should worship him and not worship anything besides him." He then proceeded for a while and again said, "O Mu'adh bin Jabal," I replied, "Labbaik, O Allah's Messenger," and Sadaik. He said, "Do you know what is Allah's slaves' people's right on Allah if they did that?" I replied, "Allah and his apostle know better." He said, "The right of Allah's slaves on Allah is that he should not punish them if they did that." Chapter 38. The humility of modesty or lowliness. Narrated Anas. The Prophet had a she-camel called Al-Adba, and it was too fast to surpass in speed. There came a Bedouin riding a camel of his, and that camel outstripped it, Al-Aqba. That result was hard on the Muslims, who said sorrowfully, "Al-Adba has been outstripped." Allah's Messenger said, "It is due from Allah that nothing will be raised high in this world except that He lowers or puts it down." Narrated Abu Huraira. Allah's Messenger said, Allah said, "I will declare war against him who shows hostility to a pious worshipper of mine, and the most beloved things with which my slave comes near to me is what I have enjoined upon him. And my slave keeps on coming closer to me through performing nawafil, praying or doing extra deeds, besides what is obligatory, till I love him, so I become his sense of hearing with which he hears, and his sense of sight with which he sees, and his hand with which he grips, and his leg with which he walks. And if he asks me, I will give him, and if he asks my protection, refuge, I will protect him, give him my refuge. And I do not hesitate to do anything as I hesitate to take the soul of the believer, for he hates death, and I hate to disappoint him." Chapter 39. I have been sent, and the hour as these two. Narrated Saul. Allah's Messenger said, "I have been sent, and the hour is at hand, as these two," showing his two fingers and sticking separating them out. Narrated Anas. Allah's Messenger said, "I have been sent, and the hour is at hand, as these two fingers." Narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, "I have been sent, and the hour is at hand, as these two fingers." Chapter 40. The rising of the sun from the west. Narrated Abu Huraira. Allah's Messenger said, "The hour will not be established till the sun rises from the west, and when it rises from the west, and the people see it, then all of them will believe in Allah. But that will be the time when no good it will do to a soul to believe then, if it believed not before." 658. The hour will be established so suddenly that two persons spreading a garment between them will not be able to finish their bargain, nor will they be able to fold it up. The hour will be established while a man is carrying the milk of his she-camel, but cannot drink it, and the hour will be established when someone is not able to prepare the tank to water his livestock from it, and the hour will be established when some of you has raised his food to his mouth but cannot eat it. Chapter 41. Whoever loves to meet Allah, Allah loves to meet him. Narrated Ubadah bin As-Samit. The Prophet said, whoever loves to meet Allah, Allah too loves to meet him, and whoever hates to meet Allah, Allah too hates to meet him. Aisha, or some of the wives of the Prophet, said, but we dislike death. He said, it is not like this. But it is meant that when the time of the death of a believer approaches, he receives the good news of Allah's pleasure with him and His blessings upon him, and so at that time nothing is dearer to him than what is in front of him. He therefore loves the meeting with Allah, and Allah too loves the meeting with him. But when the time of the death of a disbeliever approaches, he receives the evil news of Allah's torment and his requital, whereupon nothing is more hateful to him than what is before him. Requital. Therefore he hates the meeting with Allah, and Allah too hates the meeting with him. Narrated Abu Musa. The Prophet said, whoever loves the meeting with Allah, Allah too loves the meeting with him, and whoever hates the meeting with Allah, Allah too hates the meeting with him. Narrated Aisha. The wife of the Prophet, when Allah's messenger was in good health, he used to say, no prophet's soul is ever captured unless he is shown his place in paradise and given the option to die or survive. So when the death of the Prophet approached and his head was on my thigh, he became unconscious for a while, and then he came to his senses and fixed his eyes on the ceiling and said, O Allah, with the highest companions, see Quran 4:69. I said, hence he is not going to choose us, and I came to know that it was the application of the narration which he, the Prophet, used to narrate to us, and that was the last statement of the Prophet before his death. Yeah, O Allah, with the highest companions, see Quran 4:69. Chapter 42. The Stupors of Death. Narrated Aisha. There was a leather or wood container full of water in front of Allah's messenger. At the time of his death, he would put his hand into the water and rub his face with it, saying, none has the right to be worshipped but Allah. No doubt, death has its stupors. Then he raised his hand and started saying, O Allah, with the highest companions, see Quran 4:69. And kept on saying it till he expired, and his hand dropped. Narrated Aisha. Some rough Bedouins used to visit the Prophet and ask him, when will the hour be? He would look at the youngest of all of them and say, if this should live till he is very old, your hour, the death of the people addressed, will take place. Hisham said that he meant by the hour their death. Narrated Abu Qatada bin Ribi al-Ansari. A funeral procession passed by Allah's messenger, who said, relieved or relieving. The people asked, O Allah's messenger, what is relieved and relieving? He said, a believer is relieved by death from the troubles and hardships of the world and lives for the mercy of Allah, while the death of a wicked person relieves the people, the land, the trees, and the animals from him. Narrated Abu Qatada. The Prophet said, relieved or relieving, and a believer is relieved by death. Narrated Anas bin Malik. Allah's messenger said, when carried to his grave, a dead person is followed by 3, 2 of which return after his burial, and 1 remains with him, his relative, his property, and his deeds. follow him. Relatives and his property go back while his deeds remain with him. Narrated Ibn Umar. Allah's messenger said, when any one of you dies, his destination is displayed before him in the forenoon and in the afternoon, either in the hellfire or in the paradise, and it is said to him, that is your place till you are resurrected and sent to it. Narrated Aisha. The Prophet said, do not abuse the dead, for they have reached the result of what they have done. Chapter 43. The blowing of the trumpet on the day of resurrection. Narrated Abu Huraira. Two men, a Muslim and a Jew, abused each other. The Muslim said, by him who gave superiority to Muhammad over all the people. On that the Jew said, by him who gave superiority to Moses over all the people. The Muslim became furious at that and slapped the Jew in the face. The Jew went to Allah's messenger and informed him of what had happened between him and the Muslim. Allah's apostle said, don't give me superiority over Moses, for the people will fall unconscious on the day of resurrection, and I will be the first to gain consciousness, and behold, Moses will be there holding the side of Allah's throne. I will not know whether Moses had been among those people who have become unconscious and then has regained consciousness before me, or has been among those exempted by Allah from falling unconscious. Narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, the people will fall down unconscious at the time when they should fall down, on the day of resurrection, and then I will be the first man to get up, and behold, Moses will be there holding Allah's throne. I will not know whether he has been amongst those who have fallen unconscious. Chapter 44. On the day of resurrection, Allah will grasp the whole earth. Narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, Allah will take the whole earth in his hand, and will roll up the heaven in his right hand. And then he will say, I am king, where are the kings of the earth? Narrated Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. The Prophet said, the planet of earth will be a bread on the day of resurrection, and the resistible Allah will turn it with his hand, like any one of you turns a bread with his hands while preparing the bread for a journey, and that bread will be the entertainment for the people of paradise. A man from the Jews came to the Prophet and said, may the beneficent Allah bless you, O Abul Qasim. Shall I tell you of the entertainment of the people of paradise on the day of resurrection? The Prophet said, yes. The Jew said, the earth will be a bread, as the Prophet had said thereupon. The Prophet looked at us and smiled till his premolar tooth became visible. Then the Jew further said, shall I tell you of the udum, additional food taken with bread they will have with the bread? He added, that will be balam and nun. The people asked, what is that? He said, it is an ox and a fish, and 70,000 people will eat of the cowdat lobe, extra lobe of their livers. Narrated Sahl bin Sa'd. I heard a prophet saying, the people will be gathered on the day of resurrection on reddish white land, like a pure loaf of bread, made of pure fine flour. Sahl added, that land will have no landmarks for anybody to make use of, Chapter 45. The Gathering on the Day of Resurrection. Narrated Abu Hurairah. The Prophet said, "The people will be gathered in three ways. The first way will be of those who will wish or have hope. Those who will wish or have a hope for paradise, and will have a fear of punishment. The second batch will be those who will gather, riding 2 on a camel, or 3 on a camel, or 10 on a camel. The third batch, the rest of the people, will be urged to gather by the fire, which will accompany them at the time of their afternoon nap, and stay with them where they will spend the night, and will be with them in the morning wherever they may be then, and will be with them in the afternoon wherever they may be then." Narrated Anas bin Malik. A man said, "O Allah's Prophet, will a kafir, disbeliever, be gathered, driven prone on his face?" The Prophet said, "Is not he who made him walk with his legs in this world able to make him walk on his face on the day of resurrection?" Qatada, a sub-narrator, said, "Yes, he can, by the power of our Lord." Narrated Ibn Abbas. The Prophet said, "You will meet Allah barefooted, naked, walking on feet, and uncircumcised." Narrated Ibn Abbas. I heard Allah's Messenger, while he was delivering a sermon on a pulpit, saying, "You will meet Allah barefooted, naked, and uncircumcised." Narrated Ibn Abbas. The Prophet stood up among us and addressed, saying, "You will be gathered barefooted, naked, and uncircumcised, as Allah says, as we began the first creation, we shall repeat it." 2104. And the first human being to be dressed on the day of resurrection will be the Prophet Abraham, Al-Khalil. Then will be brought some men of my followers who will be taken towards the left, to the fire. And I will say, "O Lord, my companions," whereupon Allah will say, "You do not know what they did after you left them." I will then say, as the pious slave Jesus said, "And I was witness over them while I dwelt amongst them, up to the All-Wise." 517, 118. The narrator added, "Then it will be said that those people relegated from Islam, that is, kept on turning on their heels, deserted Islam." Narrated Aisha. Allah's Messenger said, "The people will be gathered barefooted, naked, and uncircumcised." I said, "O Allah's Messenger, will the man and the woman look at each other?" He said, "The situation will be too hard for them to pay attention to that." Narrated Abdullah. While we were in the company of the Prophet in a tent, he said, "Would it please you to be 1/4 of the people of paradise?" We said, "Yes." He said, "Would it please you to be 1/3 of the people of paradise?" We said, "Yes." He said, "Would it please you to be half of the people of paradise?" We said, "Yes." Thereupon he said, "I hope that you will be 1/2 of the people of paradise, for none will enter paradise but a Muslim soul, and you people, in comparison to the people who associate others in worship with Allah, are like a white hair on the skin of a black ox, or a black hair on the skin of a red ox." Narrated Abu Hurairah. The Prophet said, "The first man to be called on the day of resurrection will be Adam, who will be shown his offspring, and it will be said to them, 'This is your father, Adam.' Adam will say, responding to the call, 'Labaik' and 'Sadaik.' Then Allah will say to Adam, 'Take out take out of your offspring the people of hell. Adam will say, O Lord, how many should I take out? Allah will say, take out 99 out of every 100. They, the Prophet's companions, said, O Allah's Apostle, if 99 out of every 100 of us are taken away, what will remain out of us? He said, my followers in comparison to the other nations are like a white hare on a black ox. Chapter 46. Who associate others in worship with Allah? Narrated Abu Sa'id. The Prophet said, Allah will say, O Adam. Adam will reply, Labaik and Sadaik. I respond to your calls. I am obedient to your orders. Wal khair fi yadaik, and all the good is in your hands. Then Allah will say to Adam, bring out the people of the fire. Adam will say, what? How many are the people of the fire? Allah will say, out of every 1,000 take out 999 persons. At that time children will become hoary-headed, and every pregnant female will drop her load, have an abortion, and you will see the people as if they were drunk, yet not drunk. But Allah's punishment will be very severe. That news distressed the companions of the Prophet too much, and they said, O Allah's Messenger, who amongst us will be that man, the lucky one, out of 1,000 who will be saved from the fire? He said, have the good news that 1,000 will be from Gog and Magog, and the one to be saved will be from you. The Prophet added, by him in whose hand my soul is, I hope that you Muslims will be 1/3 of the people of paradise. On that we glorified and praised Allah and said, Allahu Akbar. The Prophet then said, by him in whose hand my soul is, I hope that you will be 1/2 of the people of paradise, as your Muslims' example in comparison to the other people, non-Muslims, is like that of a white hair on the skin of a black ox, or a round hairless spot on the foreleg of a donkey. Chapter 47. Think they not that they will be resurrected on a great day? Narrated Ibn Umar. The Prophet said regarding the verse, a day when all mankind will stand before the Lord of the worlds. That day, they will stand drowned in their sweat up to the middle of their ears. Narrated Abu Huraira. Allah's Messenger said, the people will sweat so profusely on the day of resurrection that their sweat will sink 70 cubits deep into the earth, and it will rise up till it reaches the people's mouths and ears. Chapter 48. Al-Qisas on the day of resurrection. Narrated Abdullah. The Prophet said, the cases which will be decided first on the day of resurrection will be the cases of bloodshedding. Narrated Abu Huraira. Allah's Messenger said, whoever has wronged his brother should ask for his pardon before his death, as in the hereafter there will be neither a dinar nor a dirham. He should secure pardon in this life, before some of his good deeds are taken and paid to his brother, or if he has done no good deeds, some of the bad deeds of his brother are taken to be loaded on him in the hereafter. Narrated Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. Allah's Messenger said, the believers after being saved from the hellfire will be stopped at a bridge between paradise and hell, and mutual retaliation will be established among them regarding wrongs they have committed in the world against one another. After they are cleansed and purified through the retaliation, they will be admitted into paradise, and by him in whose hand Muhammad's soul is, every one of them will know his dwelling in paradise better than he knew his dwelling in this world. Chapter 49. Anybody whose account is questioned will surely be punished. Narrated Ibn Abi Mulaika. Aisha said, the Prophet said, anybody whose account record is questioned will surely be punished. I said, doesn't Allah say he surely will receive an easy reckoning? 84:8. The Prophet replied, this means only the presentation of the account. Narrated Aisha, the Prophet said as above. 443. Narrated Aisha, Allah's Messenger said, none will be called to account on the day of resurrection, but will be ruined. I said, O Allah's Messenger, hasn't Allah said, then as for him who will be given his record in his right hand, he surely will receive an easy reckoning. 84:7-8. Allah's Messenger said, that verse means only the presentation of the accounts, but anybody whose account record is questioned on the day of resurrection will surely be punished. Narrated Anas bin Malik, Allah's Prophet used to say, a disbeliever will be brought on the day of resurrection and will be asked, suppose you had as much gold as to fill the earth, would you offer it to ransom yourself? He will reply, yes. Then it will be said to him, you were asked for something easier than that, to join none in worship with Allah, yet to accept Islam, but you refused. Narrated Adi bin Hatim. The Prophet said, there will be none among you but will be talked to by Allah on the day of resurrection, without there being an interpreter between him and him, Allah. He will look and see nothing ahead of him, and then he will look again for the second time in front of him, and the hellfire will confront him. So whoever among you can save himself from the fire should do so, even with 1/2 of a date to give in charity. Narrated Adi bin Hatim. The Prophet said, protect yourself from the fire. He then turned his face aside, as if he were looking at it, and said again, protect yourself from the fire, and then turned his face aside, as if he were looking at it. And he said so for the third time till we thought he was looking at it. He then said, protect yourselves from the fire, even if with 1/2 of a date, and he who hasn't got even this should do so, by saying a good pleasant word. Chapter 50. 70,000 will enter paradise without accounts. Narrated Ibn Abbas. The Prophet said, the people were displayed in front of me, and I saw one prophet passing by with a large group of his followers, and another prophet passing by with only a small group of people, and another prophet passing by with only 10 persons, and another prophet passing by with only 5 persons, and another prophet passed by alone. And then I looked and saw a large multitude of people. So I asked Gabriel, are these people my followers? He said, no, but look towards the horizon. I looked and saw a very large multitude of people. Gabriel said, these are your followers, and those are 70,000 persons in front of them who will neither have any reckoning of their accounts nor will receive any punishment. I asked, why? He said, for they used not to treat themselves with branding, cauterization, nor with ruqya, get oneself treated by the recitation of some verses of the Quran, and not to see evil omen in things, and they used to put their trust only in their Lord. On hearing that, Ukasha bin Mihsan got up and said to the Prophet, invoke Allah to make me one of them. The Prophet said, O Allah, make him one of them. Then another man got up and said to the Prophet, invoke Allah to make me one of them. The Prophet said, Ukasha has preceded you. Narrated Abu Hurairah. I heard Allah's Messenger saying, from my followers there will enter paradise a crowd, 70,000 in number, whose faces will glitter as the moon does when it is full. On hearing that, Ukasha bin Mihsan al-Asti got up, lifting his covering sheet, and said, O Allah's Messenger, I invoke Allah that He may make me one of them. The Prophet said, O Allah, make him one of them. Another man from the Ansar got up and said, O Allah's Messenger, invoke Allah to make me one of them. The Prophet said to him, Ukasha has preceded you. Narrated Sa'd bin Sa'd. The Prophet said, 70,000 or 700,000 of my followers, the narrator is in doubt as to the correct number, will enter paradise holding each other till the first and the last of them enter paradise at the same time, and their faces will have a glitter like that of the moon at night when it is full. Narrated Ibn Umar. The Prophet said, the people of paradise will enter paradise, and the people of the hellfire will enter the hellfire. Then a call maker will get up and make an announcement among them, O the people of the hellfire, no death anymore, and O people of paradise, no death anymore but eternity. Narrated Abu Hurairah. The Prophet said, it will be said to the people of paradise, O people of paradise, eternity for you and no death, and to the people of the fire, O people of fire, eternity for you and no death. Chapter 51. The description of paradise and the fire. Narrated Imran. The Prophet said, I looked into paradise and saw that the majority of its people were the poor, and I looked into the fire and found that the majority of its people were women. Narrated Usama. The Prophet said, I stood at the gate of paradise and saw that the majority of the people who had entered it were poor people, while the rich were forbidden to enter along with the poor, because they were waiting the reckoning of their accounts. But the people of the fire had been ordered to be driven to the fire. And I stood at the gate of the fire and found that the majority of the people entering it were women. Narrated Ibn Umar. Allah's Messenger said, when the people of paradise have entered paradise and the people of the fire have entered the fire, death will be brought and will be placed between the fire and paradise, and then it will be slaughtered, and a call will be made that, O people of paradise, no more death, O people of the fire, no more death. So the people of paradise will have happiness added to their previous happiness, and the people of the fire will have sorrow added to their previous sorrow. Narrated Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. Allah's Messenger said, Allah will say to the people of paradise, O the people of paradise, they will say, Labaik, O our Lord, and Sadaik. Allah will say, are you pleased? They will say, why should we not be pleased, since you have given us what you have not given to any one of your creation? Allah will say, I will give you something better than that. They will reply, O our Lord, and what is better than that? Allah will say, I will bestow my pleasure and contentment upon you, so that I will never be angry with you after forever. Narrated Anas. Haritha was martyred on the day of the battle of Badr. While he was young, his mother came to the Prophet, saying, O Allah's Messenger, you know the relation of Haritha to me, how fond of him I was. So if he is in paradise, I will remain patient and wish for Allah's reward. But if he is not there, then you will see what I will do. The Prophet replied, May Allah be merciful upon you. Have you gone mad? Do you think it is one paradise? There are many paradises, and he is in the most superior paradise of all, Firdaus. Narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, the width between the two shoulders of a kafir disbeliever will be equal to the distance covered by a fast rider in 3 days. Narrated Sahl bin Sa'd. Allah's Messenger said, in paradise there is a tree so big that in its shade a river may travel for 100 years without being able to cross it. Narrated Abu Sa'id. The Prophet said, there is a tree in paradise so huge that a fast or a trained rider may travel for 100 years without being able to cross it. Narrated Sahl bin Sa'd. Allah's Messenger said, 70,000 or 700,000 of my followers will enter paradise. Abu Hasim, the sub-narrator, is not sure as to which of the two numbers is correct. They will be holding on to each other. The first will not entering, the last one does. Their faces like the moon on a full moon night. Narrated Sahl. The Prophet said, the people of paradise will see the good of special abodes in paradise as you see a star in the sky. Abu Sa'id added, as you see a glittering star remaining in the eastern horizon and the western horizon. Narrated Anas bin Malik. The Prophet said, Allah will say to the person who will have the minimum punishment in the fire on the day of resurrection, if you had things equal to whatever is on the earth, would you ransom yourself from the punishment with it? He will reply, yes. Allah will say, I asked you a much easier thing than this while you were in the backbone of Adam, that is, not to worship others besides me, but you refused and insisted to worship others besides me. Narrated Hamad from Amr from Jabir. The Prophet said, some people will come out of the fire through intercession, looking like the Tarir. I asked Amr, what is the Farir? He said, Ad-Dak Abis, and at that time he was toothless. Hamad added, I said to Amr bin Dinar, O Abu Muhammad, did you hear Jabir bin Abdullah saying, I heard the Prophet saying, some people will come out of the fire through intercession? He said, yes. Narrated Anas bin Malik. The Prophet said, some people will come out of the fire after they have received a touch of the fire, changing their color, and they will enter paradise, and the people of paradise will name them Al-Jahannamiyin, the hellfire people. Narrated Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. Allah's Messenger said, when the people of paradise have entered paradise and the people of the fire have entered the fire, Allah will say, take out of the fire whoever has got faith equal to a mustard seed in his heart. They will come out, and by that time they will have burnt and became like coal, and then they will be thrown into the river of Al-Hayat, life, and they will spring up just as a seed grows on the bank of a rain-water stream. The Prophet said, don't you see that the germinating seed comes out yellow and twisted? Don't you see that the germinating seed comes out yellow and twisted? Narrated An Numan. I heard a Prophet saying, the person who will have the least punishment from amongst the hellfire people on the day of resurrection will be a man under whose arc of the feet a smoldering ember will be placed so that his brain will boil because of it. Narrated on Nu'man bin Bashir. I heard a prophet saying, the least punished person of the hellfire people on the day of resurrection will be a man under whose ark of the feet 2 smoldering embers will be placed, because of which his brain will boil just like al-mirjal, copper vessel, or a kumkum, narrow-necked vessel, is boiling with water. Narrated Adi bin Hatim. The Prophet mentioned the fire and turned his face aside and asked for Allah's protection from it. And then again he mentioned the fire and turned his face aside and asked for Allah's protection from it and said, protect yourselves from the hellfire, even if with one half of a date. And he who cannot afford that, then let him do so by saying a good pleasant word. Narrated Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. I heard Allah's messengers when his uncle Abu Talib had been mentioned in his presence, saying, Maybe my intercession will help him, Abu Talib, on the day of resurrection, so that he may be put in a shallow place in the fire, with fire reaching his ankles and causing his brain to boil. Narrated Anas. Allah's messenger said, Allah will gather all the people on the day of resurrection, and they will say, let us request someone to intercede for us with our Lord, so that he may relieve us from this place of ours. Then they will go to Adam and say, you are the one whom Allah created with his own hands, and breathed in you of his soul, and ordered the angels to prostrate to you. So please intercede for us with our Lord. Adam will reply, I am not fit for this undertaking, and will remember his sin, and will say, Go to Noah, the first apostle sent by Allah. They will go to him, and he will say, I am not fit for this undertaking, and will remember his sin, and say, Go to Abraham, whom Allah took as a Khalil. They will go to him and request similarly. He will reply, I am not fit for this undertaking, and will remember his sin, and say, Go to Moses, to whom Allah spoke directly. They will go to Moses, and he will say, I am not fit for this undertaking, and will remember his sin, and say, Go to Jesus. They will go to him, and he will say, I am not fit for this undertaking. Go to Muhammad, as Allah has forgiven his past and future sins. They will come to me, and I will ask my Lord's permission, and when I see him, I will fall down in prostration to him, and he will leave me in that state as long as he, Allah, will, and then I will be addressed. Raise up your head, O Muhammad, ask and your request will be granted, and your saying will be listened to. Intercede and your intercession will be accepted. Then I will raise my head, and I will glorify and praise my Lord with a saying, invocation. He will teach me, and then I will intercede. Allah will fix a limit for me, a certain type of people for whom I may intercede, and I will take them out of the hellfire and let them enter paradise. Then I will come back to Allah and fall in prostration, and will do the same for the third and fourth times, till no one remains in the hellfire except those whom the Quran has imprisoned therein. The sub-narrator Qatada used to say at that point, those upon whom eternity in hellfire has been imposed. See Hadith number 3, volume 6. Narrated Imran bin Hussein. The Prophet said, some people will be taken out of the fire through the intercession of Muhammad. They will enter paradise and will be called Al-Jahannamiyin, the hellfire people. Narrated Anas. The mother of Haritha, came to Allah's messenger after Haritha had been martyred on the day of the Battle of Badr by an arrow thrown by an unknown person. She said, O Allah's messenger, You know the position of Harita in my heart. Yet how dear to me he was. So if he is in paradise, I will not weep for him, or otherwise you will see what I will do. The prophet said, Are you mad? Is there only one paradise? There are many paradises, and he is in the highest paradise of Firdaus. The prophet added, A forenoon journey or an afternoon journey in Allah's cause is better than the whole world, and whatever is in it, and a place equal to an arrow bow of any one of you. Or a place equal to a foot in paradise is better than the whole world, and whatever is in it. And if one of the women of paradise looked at the earth, she would fill the whole space between them, the earth and the heaven, with light, and would fill whatever is in between them with perfume, and the veil of her face is better than the whole world, and whatever is in it. Narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, None will enter paradise but will be shown the place he would have occupied in the hellfire, if he had rejected faith, so that he may be more thankful, and none will enter the hellfire but will be shown the place he would have occupied in paradise, if he had faith, so that may be a cause of sorrow for him. Narrated Abu Huraira. I said, O Allah's Messenger, who will be the luckiest person who will gain your intercession on the day of resurrection? The Prophet said, O Abu Huraira, I have thought that none will ask me about this hadith before you, as I know your longing for the learning of hadiths. The luckiest person who will have my intercession on the day of resurrection will be the one who said, None has the right to be worshipped but Allah, sincerely from the bottom of his heart. Narrated Abdullah. The Prophet said, I know the person who will be the last to come out of the hellfire, the last to enter paradise. He will be a man who will come out of the hellfire crawling, and Allah will say to him, Go and enter paradise. He will go to it, but he will imagine that it had been filled. And then he will return and say, O Lord, I have found it full. Allah will say, Go and enter paradise, and you will have what equals the world and 10 times as much, or you will have as much as 10 times the like of the world. On that the man will say, Do you mock at me, or laugh at me, though you are the king? I saw Allah's Messenger while saying that, smiling that his premolar teeth became visible. It is said that will be the lowest in degree amongst the people of paradise. Narrated Abbas, that he said to the Prophet, Did you benefit Abu Talib with anything? Chapter 52. Al-Sirat is a bridge across the hell. Narrated Abu Huraira. Some people said, O Allah's Messenger, shall we see our Lord on the day of resurrection? He said, Do you crowd and squeeze each other on looking at the sun when it is not hidden by clouds? They replied, No, Allah's Messenger. He said, Do you crowd and squeeze each other on looking at the moon when it is full and not hidden by clouds? They replied, No, O Allah's Messenger. He said, So you will see him, your Lord, on the day of resurrection. Similarly, Allah will gather all the people and say, Whoever used to worship anything should follow that thing. So he who used to worship the sun will follow it, and he who used to worship the moon will follow it, and he who used to worship false deities will follow them. And then only this nation, Muslims, will remain, including the hypocrites. Allah will come to them in a shape other than they know, and will say, I am your Lord. They will say, We seek refuge with Allah from you. This is our place. We will not follow you till our Lord comes to us. And when our Lord comes to us, we will recognize him. Then Allah will come to them in a shape they know and will say, I am your Lord. They will say, no doubt you are our Lord. And they will follow him. Then a bridge will be laid over the hellfire. Allah's messenger added, I will be the first to cross it, and the invocation of the apostles on that day will be Allahumma Salim, Salim. O Allah, save us, and over that bridge there will be hooks similar to the thorns of As-Sadan, a thorny tree. Didn't you see the thorns of As-Sadan? The companion said, Yes, O Allah's messenger. He added, so the hooks over that bridge will be like the thorns of As-Sadan, except that their greatness in size is only known to Allah. These hooks will snatch the people according to their deeds. Some people will be ruined because of their evil deeds, and some will be cut into pieces and fall down in hell, but will be saved afterwards. When Allah has finished the judgment among his slaves and intends to take out of the fire whoever he wishes to take out, from among those who used to testify that none had the right to be worshipped but Allah, we will order the angels to take them out, and the angels will know them by the mark of the traces of prostration on their foreheads. For Allah banned the fire to consume the traces of prostration on the body of Adam's son, so they will take them out, and by then they would have burnt as coal, and then water called Ma'ul Hayat, water of life, will be poured on them, and they will spring out like a seed springs out on the bank of a rainwater stream, and there will remain one man who will be facing the hell fire and will say, O Lord, its hell's vapor has poisoned and smoked me, and its flame has burnt me. Please turn my face away from the fire. He will keep on invoking Allah till Allah says, perhaps if I give you what you want, you will ask for another thing. The man will say, no, by your power I will not ask you for anything else. Then Allah will turn his face away from the fire. The man will say after that, O Lord, bring me near the gate of paradise. Allah will say to him, didn't you promise not to ask for anything else? Woe to you, O son of Adam! How treacherous you are! The man will keep on invoking Allah till Allah will say, but if I give you that, you may ask me for something else. The man will say, no, by your power I will not ask for anything else. He will give Allah his covenant and promise not to ask for anything else after that. So Allah will bring him near to the gate of paradise, and when he sees what is in it, he will remain silent as long as Allah will. And then he will say, O Lord, let me enter paradise. Allah will say, didn't you promise that you would not ask me for anything other than that? Woe to you, O son of Adam, how treacherous you are. On that the man will say, O Lord, do not make me the most wretched of your creation, and will keep on invoking Allah till Allah will smile, and when Allah will smile because of him, then he will allow him to enter paradise. And when he will enter paradise, he will be addressed, wish from so and so. He will wish till all his wishes will be fulfilled. Then Allah will say, all this, what you have wished for, and as much again therewith are for you. Abu Huraira added, that man will be the last of the people of paradise to enter paradise. Narrated Atta. While Abu Huraira was narrating, see previous hadith, Abu Sa'id was sitting in the company of Abu Huraira, and he did not deny anything of his narration till he reached his saying, all this and as much again therewith are for you. Then Abu Sa'id said, I heard Allah's messenger saying, this is for you and 10 times as much. Abu Huraira said, "In my memory it is as much again therewith." Chapter 53, regarding Al-Hawd. Narrated Abdullah. The Prophet said, "I am your predecessor at the lake fount." Abdullah added, "The Prophet said, I am your predecessor at the lake fount, and some of you will be brought in front of me till I will see them, and then they will be taken away from me, and I will say, O Lord, my companions, it will be said, you do not know what they did after you had left." Narrated Ibn Umar. The Prophet said, "There will be a lake fount in front of you as large as the distance between Jarba and Adru, 2 towns in Sham." Narrated Ibn Abbas. The word Al-Kawthar means the abundant good which Allah gave to him. The Prophet Muhammad Abu Bishr said, "I said to Sa'id, some people claim that Al-Kawthar is a river in paradise." Sa'id replied, "The river which is in paradise is one item of that good which Allah has bestowed upon him, Muhammad." Narrated Abdullah bin Amr. The Prophet said, "My lake fount is so large that it takes a month's journey to cross it. Its water is whiter than milk, and its smell is nicer than musk, a kind of perfume, and its drinking cups are as numerous as the number of the stars of the sky, and whoever drinks from it will never be thirsty." Narrated Anas bin Malik. Allah's Messenger said, "The width of my lake fount is equal to the distance between Ayla, a town in Sham, and Sana'a, the capital of Yemen, and it has as many numerous jugs as the number of stars of the sky." Narrated Anas bin Malik. The Prophet said, "While I was walking in paradise on the night of Miraj, I saw a river on the 2 banks, of which there were tents made of hollow pearls. I asked, 'What is this, O Gabriel?' He said, 'That is the Kawthar which your Lord has given to you. Behold, its scent or its mud was sharp-smelling musk.'" The sub-narrator Hudba is in doubt as to the correct expression. Narrated Anas. The Prophet said, "Some of my companions will come to me at my lake fount, and after I recognize them, they will then be taken away from me, whereupon I will say, My companions, then it will be said, you do not know what they innovated new things in the religion after you." Narrated Abu Hasim from Sal bin Sa'd. The Prophet said, "I am your predecessor, forerunner, at the lake fount, and whoever will pass by there, he will drink from it, and whoever will drink from it, he will never be thirsty. There will come to me some people whom I will recognize, and they will recognize me, but a barrier will be placed between me and them." Abu Hasim added, Al-Numan bin Abi Ayas. Abu Hasim added, Al-Numan bin Abi Ayas, on hearing me, said, "Did you hear this from Sal?" I said, "Yes." He said, "I bear witness that I heard Abu Sa'id al-Khudri saying the same, adding that the Prophet said, I will say, they are of me, yet my followers, it will be said, you do not know what they innovated new things in the religion after you left. I will say, far removed from mercy, those who changed their religion after me." Abu Huraira narrated that the Prophet said, On the day of resurrection, a group of companions will come to me, but will be driven away from the lake fount. And I will say, O Lord, those are my companions. It will be said, you have no knowledge as to what they innovated after you left. They turned apostate, as renegades reverted from Islam. Narrated Ibn al-Musayyab. The companions of the Prophet said, Some men from my companions will come to my lake fount, and they will be driven away from it. And I will say, O Lord, my companions, it will be said, you have no knowledge of what they innovated after you left. They turned apostate, as renegades reverted from Islam. Narrated Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, while I was sleeping, a group of my followers were brought close to me, and when I recognized them, an angel came out from amongst us, me and them. He said to them, come along. I asked, where? He said, to the hellfire. By Allah, I asked, what is wrong with them? He said, they turned apostate as renegades after you left. Then behold, another group of my followers were brought close to me, and when I recognized them, an angel came out from me and them. He said to them, come along. I asked, where? He said, to the hellfire. By Allah, I asked, what is wrong with them? He said, they turned apostate as renegades after you left, so I did not see any one of them escaping except a few who were like camels without a shepherd. Narrated Abu Huraira. Allah's Messenger said, between my house and my pulpit there is a garden from amongst the gardens of paradise, and my pulpit is over my lake fount. Narrated Jundub. I heard the Prophet saying, I am your predecessor at the lake fount, Al-Kawthar. Narrated Uqba bin Amir. Once the Prophet went out and offered the funeral prayers for the martyrs of Uhud, and then went to the pulpit and said, I am a predecessor for you and I am a witness for you. And by Allah, I am looking at my fount just now, and the keys of the treasures of the earth, or the keys of the earth, have been given to me. And by Allah, I am not afraid that you will worship others besides Allah after me, but I am afraid that you will strive and struggle against each other over these treasures of the world. Narrated Haritha bin Wahb. I heard the Prophet mentioning the lake fount, Al-Kawthar, saying, the width of the lake fount is equal to the distance between Medina and Sana'a, capital of Yemen. Haritha said that he heard the Prophet saying that this lake fount would be as large as the distance between Sana'a and Medina. Al-Mustawrid said to Haritha, didn't you hear him talking about the vessels? He said, no. Al-Mustawrid said, the vessels are seen in it as numberless as the stars. Narrated Asma bint Abu Bakr. The Prophet said, I will be standing at the lake fount, so that I will see whom among you will come to me, and some people will be taken away from me, and I will say, O Lord, they are from me and from my followers. Then it will be said, did you notice what they did after you? By Allah, they kept on turning on their heels, turned as renegades. The sub-narrator Ibn Abi Mulaika said, O Allah, we seek refuge with you from turning on our heels, or being put to trial in our religion.